During a live TV broadcast, the director of the Secret Service accidentally spilled some pretty disturbing details, leaving viewers shocked and worried. The slip-up included sensitive info that wasn't supposed to be public, leading to a lot of chatter about potential security risks.
This was a catastrophic failure to protect a former president and, quite frankly, also the leading candidate to be the next president.
He expressed his heartfelt condolences to the Imperator family who were involved in the Trump incident.
I join you and all Americans in condemning the horrific on former President Trump, Corey Comparator, James Copenhaver, and David Dutch. And I extend my deepest sympathies to the Comparator family and my sincere wishes for Mr. Copenhaver and Mr. Dutch's continued recovery.
Special agents displayed remarkable heroism by shielding the former president with their bodies during the incident.
Before I begin, though, I want to commend the heroic actions of the men and women of the United States Secret Service on July 13th. Our special agents shielded the former president with their bodies while shots were still being fired, selflessly, willing to make the ultimate sacrifice without hesitation.
She arrived at Capitol Hill totally unprepared and was unable to respond to even the simplest questions posed to her.
Well, and she came to Capitol Hill with no answers to some very basic questions. And the calls were not just coming from Republicans for her to resign. There were many Democrats who felt the same. And you kind of have to wonder, she said the buck stops with her, that she would be the one who would answer the questions. She wanted to be as transparent as possible. She was not.
This was something she couldn't really avoid, given the mounting pressure and her lack of preparation.
And so I do think that this became something that was inevitable for her. It was a bipartisan call for her. Not everybody, but I mean, you had enough Democrats saying she should resign. In fact, we started the show with Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, who also thought she should be gone.
How come President Trump was permitted on stage even after several suspicious people were reported?
Why was President Trump allowed to take the stage at 6:02 p.m., exactly 17 minutes after multiple suspicious person reports were provided, complete with photos and information suggesting that the had a rangefinder, something that ordinary people don't use in this kind of circumstance?
There was never any communication regarding suspicion or the presence of weapons.
Senator, again, it was suspicion, not weapon, or there was never communication of that there was an individual with a gun or threat or other bad intentions.
How many suspicious person reports did you receive that day?
I'll get back to you on the exact number, but there were other individuals that came to the attention of law enforcement that day.
She's a key part of the whole thing, always asking the right questions to help sort out what's going on and clear things up.
She is part of that puzzle, for sure, to continue to ask certain questions. I mean, she's the head of the Secret Service. She didn't visit the Butler site ever. She's never been there. That's remarkable to me. And she also said, I asked her, did she talk to that team that protected the president that day? It took her 3 days to do that. I mean, these are inexcusable failures. Also, the federal agents on site that day were not sharing the same communication lines as state and local police. We've got to, again, change the culture of that organization to make sure that all of our protectees are actually, get this, protected.
I would also like to express my gratitude to our federal, state, and local partners.
They were relying on a critical relationship that had been built and developed over decades.
We rely on these critical relationships, which have developed over decades of daily collaboration to secure protective events and conduct investigations. As you're aware, there are multiple ongoing investigations of the attack and the security failures that occurred that day. I pledge my full support to those inquiries so the Secret Service, your committees, and the American people have a thorough and complete understanding of what happened leading up to and during July 13th.
It's totally inadequate and just doesn't cut it, leaving a bunch of gaps that need to be fixed if we're going to get the results we're looking for.
It's wholly inadequate. I recreated the shooting in Savoy, Texas on Saturday with a AR with a red dot scope and a magnified scope, because they still haven't told us what scope he was using, from 130 yards at 6:30 at night. And I had that AR in 6 years, and 15 out of the 16 were. So it is an absolute miracle President Trump is alive today.
Would President Biden ever be allowed on stage under similar circumstances with an unresolved set of multiple suspicious person reports provided, including indicating that there was a rangefinder involved?
Senator, I can tell you that a suspicious person on the outer perimeter with local law enforcement attempting to locate would happen, but I would need more information as far as whether or not we would allow the president to go on or off. Again, for us, it comes down to weapon, a potential threat. Is the individual carrying an IED?
Well, I voted to impeach him already. I was the first member of Congress to file articles because of his performance on the border or lack thereof. And this is another instance where Homeland Security, I mean, they're ultimately responsible for the Secret Service. He should have fired her forthwith. And has Alejandro Mayorkas gone to the site? I don't believe so. This is, again, we need adults in the room running our government, and we don't have it right now.
I don't know what we'll learn from the police here in Pennsylvania, but maybe we'll get a few answers here. Then Christopher Wray comes tomorrow. Now, she deflected numerous times yesterday, referring to Christopher Wray. Does the FBI know more, and are they ready to tell us on day 11 tomorrow?
Well, Bill, this is what's sad, is what members of Congress have found out is mostly from whistleblowers and our own personal contacts within the FBI and the Secret Service. They should be telling not just us, but the American people. You can be very transparent and open about your investigation while still not compromising it. They're not mutually exclusive. And they haven't done that. They're just stonewalling after stonewalling. I felt yesterday like I was talking to Charlie Brown's teacher. Just wah, 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 wah. It was a bunch of gobbledygook.
He won't wait for the results of those findings, especially after seeing where they messed up that day.
I will not wait for the results of those findings to assess where we failed that day. I have taken and will continue to take immediate steps to ensure we do not repeat those failures. Since my appointment as the acting director 1 week ago, I identified gaps in our security on July 13th and have implemented corrective actions. One of my first actions as acting director was traveling to the Butler Farm Show site to better understand how our protection failed. I went to the roof of the AGR building where they fired, and I laid in a prone position to evaluate his line of sight.
Well, we don't need to get into extreme specificity, but I think the general public is aware that you secure the high ground around a president of the United States or one of your high-level protectees. You have counter-surveillance teams. You have counter teams. These are just general knowledge questions, and so they can share that. I mean, and you know what? How about not allowing rangefinders? That should be a list of banned items. How did that guy get on the roof? And that slope certainly wasn't something that would prevent you positioning a law enforcement officer on there as well. We've disproven that. So there was too many untruths or flat-out lies that need to be corrected yesterday.
It's my understanding there was a sniper team assigned to a window with complete overlook, complete view of the roof, the same rooftop, the sloped rooftop where the were fired. It's also my understanding, according to some whistleblower accounts, that that post was abandoned. What can you tell me about that? Why was it abandoned?
So I saw that from the colonel's testimony, sir, and it's something that I've asked and our mission assurance is getting to the bottom of. And there were two-man counter-sniper teams from the locals that were in that AGR building.
And so at some point they just left?
That I cannot.
It seems to him that even if one of them is gone, there should still be some extra eyes on the situation to keep an eye on things.
I don't have an answer for you on that, Senator, but it seems to me that if even one of them left, there should have been remaining some additional eyes left in that building.
What I saw made me ashamed. As a career law enforcement officer and a 25-year veteran with the Secret Service, I cannot defend why that roof was not better secured. To prevent similar lapses from occurring in the future, I directed our personnel to ensure every event site security plan.
The person who shot Trump was aware of his action beforehand. What do you think his last wish was before it happened?
So this local sniper saw the would-be shooter an hour and a half before the rally started, texted the concerns about the shooter.
The New York Times has unveiled a series of revealing text messages, shedding light on the mindset of the shooter before the incident.
The New York Times has just published some very revealing text messages that, again, provide a clearer picture of the timeline and what law enforcement knew leading up to the shooting.
New information is revealing that local police first noticed the gunman who tried to assault former President Donald Trump more than an hour before the attack.
In a shocking lapse, members of the local SWAT team reported that the Secret Service never met with the shooter face-to-face, raising questions about security protocols.
New this morning, members of a local SWAT team assigned to protect Donald Trump the day of the attempt now say the Secret Service never met with them face-to-face. They spoke to ABC News about the lack of action after a local sniper texted about someone suspicious.
More than 2 weeks after the incident, new unsettling details have emerged, highlighting the sequence of events leading up to the shooting.
More than 2 weeks after 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks tried to former President Donald Trump, new details are emerging about what led up to the shooting. Text messages obtained from local police snipers by Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley show one of the officers noticed Crooks at a nearby picnic table just before 4:30 in the afternoon.
An image sent by an officer showed the shooter using a rangefinder, targeting the stage where Trump was scheduled to speak.
An hour later, another officer sends a picture of Crooks in a group text saying he was using a rangefinder pointed at the stage where Trump was set to speak.
He was looking up and down the building and just wandering around. It just seemed out of place.
Local officers mentioned letting Secret Service know and calling it in to their command.
This harrowing incident serves as a grim reminder of how history can pivot on mere millimeters, with Trump's life hanging in the balance.
Well, like most people, I watched with horror in real time as it was happening. And it was reminded again, as all of us have been, of that terrible way in which history can turn on a few millimeters, as in this case, as in attempts of previous presidents of the United States.
The gravity of the situation has yet to fully register, as America narrowly avoided an unthinkable tragedy.
I still think that in some ways, because everyone's moving on to the political significance of this, there still isn't quite enough of a registering of how close America came to a situation that is almost unthinkable. Had the bullet been very slightly to one side,
the potential fallout from such an incident could have plunged the Republican Party, the Democrats, and the nation into a deep abyss of recrimination.
Not only would we have had an of a former president and a running candidate on live television, but the Republican Party, the Democrats, America as a whole, and therefore the world, could easily have fallen into an absolute pit of recrimination, retribution, and much more. History really does turn on such moments. And, thank goodness on this occasion, things are going in a better direction than they might have done.
The lack of direct communication between the SWAT team and the Secret Service on the day of the incident raises serious concerns about coordination and preparedness.
So members of the SWAT team say they had no direct communication with the Secret Service at all on Saturday, which is amazing until after the shooting happened. That includes warnings that they picked up and they were talking about amongst themselves about this suspicious individual who would turn out to be the would-be that were raised hours in a group text with just the local snipers in it about 90 minutes before the rally took place. I want to read some of these text messages. They were obtained by Chuck Grassley, the Republican senator from Iowa, who is investigating the shooting at Trump's rally. One of them in particular at 4:26 p.m. Again, this is over an hour and a half before the rally started. One of the local snipers texts, "Kid learning around building we are in," a little typo there. "I did see him with a rangefinder looking towards stage. FYI, if you want to notify SS snipers to look out, I lost sight of him." So this local sniper saw the would-be shooter an hour and a half before the rally started, texted the concerns about the shooter, an hour and a half before the rally started, and it's unclear if that warning ever made it to the Secret Service.
However, the New York Times has just published some very revealing text messages that, again, provide a clear picture of the timeline and what law enforcement knew leading up to the shooting. And here is the alarming thing. Crooks was apparently on law enforcement's radar 90 minutes before the shooting. 90 minutes. We thought it was an hour, but now 90 minutes.
Just after 6 p.m., the gunman was able to fire several shots minutes into Trump's speech. The FBI is still digging into the gunman's past, trying to figure out a motive.
Our investigation has revealed he also made searches related to power plants, mass shooting events, information on improvised explosive devices, and the attempted of the Slovakian Prime Minister earlier this year.
The FBI's findings revealed that the gunman had visited the rally site shortly after its location was announced, indicating a premeditated plan.
As a standard part of its investigation, the FBI confirmed it will interview the former president since he was a victim of the. The FBI also revealed the gunman visited the site of the rally just a few days after the location was announced and flew a drone by it just a couple of hours before Trump took the stage.
Because it is the former president, obviously this was something that was being closely watched, and the FBI requested the interview. The former president has now agreed to it. It's a voluntary thing, and it is the standard part of an investigation like this, right? He is considered to be a victim of a. And so therefore they want to talk to him about what he experienced that day. Is there anything that they're missing about anything that he saw or witnessed before this shooting took place? So those are parts of the standard process. What is interesting too is a lot of new details that we got from this call with the senior officials at the FBI who are overseeing this investigation, including the fact that they said that, again, no motive so far has been uncovered as part of this investigation. They've also found no co-conspirators, any accomplices, but they spent a lot of time trying to understand him. And they think, again, he was a loner. He was essentially his social circle was his family, and that he spent a significant amount of time preparing for this attack. He bought gun components, and he also bought chemicals to make his improvised devices. He bought those online using aliases, using encrypted emails. Those are the things that the FBI has been spending so much time trying to get into. We also know that he spent a lot of time that day visiting the site, doing essentially surveillance ahead of when the former president finally gets on stage. And one of the things that the FBI is still trying to, the behavioral analysis people are trying to understand is, again, how does this fit with his mental state? Something we know, he researched depression and so on. The question is, was he ever treated for that? They've found no indication of that yet right now.
Reports that the shooter had ordered materials like fertilizer pellets and radio devices suggest a broader, more sinister plot was afoot, underscoring the fragility of public safety.
It has been reported that crooks had made 25 gun-related purchases between the spring of 2023 and the first half of 2024, that he had been buying supplies to make homemade, we call these rudimentary, that they were found in his car. He had a remote detonator on him. And it was revealed that there were packages that were continually coming to the house where he lived with his parents, like fertilizer pellets and radio devices, again, to be used to make. Well, Kevin Rojek, who's the special agent in charge of the FBI's Pittsburgh field office, he said yesterday that the shooter had a long interest in science and things like this, and had been doing experiments and things like that over a period of time. And for that reason, it seems he was saying that the parents weren't concerned and they weren't focused on this idea of him committing an attack of this nature or harming any people. And Rojek said that the parents had been extremely cooperative from the first night we approached them. He went on to say that the parents have said in their interviews that they had no advanced knowledge of any of this. We do find that to be credible at this stage, but pending additional investigation. Again, we're not ruling any possibility out as far as what was in the home.